Hello again, everybody. Um, I am in an excruciatingly large amount of pain right now because, for whatever reason, my sinuses have decided that they want to become inflamed and painful, super painful. So I just took my meds for it, and it normally takes like an hour and a half to 2 hours for them to kick in. So life's gonna suck for a little while. However, um, something's got to be said about this. And with all of the hate and scapegoating and just overall negativity surrounding this, I feel the need to hopefully bring a slightly small amount of reason to this discussion. Um, for those of you that are unaware, um, whether it's because you don't live in the United States or you've been focused on other things recently. Um, at 2 a.m., I believe it was Saturday morning, uh, a person uh, started an altercation that ended with 50 people dead, including the gunman himself, and another 53 wounded, as far as we are aware currently. Um, uh, according to the FBI and uh, the people that deal with guns on a federal level, I can't remember what they're called, but um, uh, they're National Weapons and Firearms or something like that. Not the NRA, that's a lobbyist group. I'm talking about the government entity that deals with um, weapons and guns and stuff like that. I think they're ATF, I think is the acronym, but I don't know. Again, I'm in a lot of pain right now. But anyway, according to them, uh, he had two weapons on him. One was what they're defining as an AR-15 style weapon, and the other has just been referred to as a handgun. Um, and because of the body count, it is the worst mass shooting in U.S. history. Um, and depending on who you talk to, it is also the largest loss of life for a terrorist attack. Now, the reason I say that is because right now, everybody that's talking about it is trying to find someone to blame, someone to be held accountable for this, because the person that actually did this is dead. He can't be held accountable for his actions. He technically has already paid the price by dying. Um, so, in a tragedy like this, people want someone to blame. They want someone to pay for the pain and the fear that they're feeling. And when they don't have someone to do that, they reach out reflexively and try and find someone to blame. We call this scapegoating. Um, so, um, so the reason that I mentioned that, depending on who you talk to, um, a lot of people are very hesitant to call this a terrorist action, simply because um, the going rhetoric right now is that we're not allowed to blame Islam for the actions of their radicalized faction. And so anytime any bad thing happens where there may be ties to ISIS or any of the other radicalized, ISIS is the big one, but there are other radicalized groups that are doing things in the name of Islam. Um, and so everybody is very, very hesitant because the overall narrative that we are being told to believe right now is that uh, to think that Islam is responsible for any of this is what's called Islamophobic. We've created a brand new word to kind of show people that we're not allowed to blame a religion for the actions of a very, very small minority subset of the religion that does terrible, terrible things, as long as that religion is Islam. Other religions are fair game, and I'll explain that in a little bit. Um, the facts that have been released by the police are he called 911, which they haven't released the call yet. So theoretically, this may be hearsay, but they have gotten it directly from the police. It's not, eyewitness accounts, which are, as much as people want to believe that they're accurate, they're not. Um, uh, Eyewitness accounts are remarkably unreliable. And you see that in criminal cases all the time, that you will have eyewitness accounts that contradict each other, and you'll find out later that a lot of people were making up their eyewitness accounts and things. So eyewitness accounts don't matter at all. They really don't. The only time they do matter is if you can get a lot of people that tell the exact same story or a very, very similar story. Then you can start believing them. Beyond that, you can't. But we have heard directly from the police, not eyewitnesses, but the police themselves, that he called up 911, pledged allegiance to ISIS during the confrontation, is what I have read most recently, as he was holed up with hostages that he took. So what we're hearing right now is this had nothing to do with Islam. It had nothing to do with ISIS, or we can't make that conclusion until we get all the information. However, that hasn't stopped everyone from jumping to conclusions, and every conclusion really but that one, depending on who you're talking to. Donald Trump has already condemned the Muslim community in general. And a lot of his supporters are doing the exact same thing. So we have people scapegoating the entirety of Islam for the actions of this one person, which is wrong. We have the American Civil Liberties Union started a wonderful thing that claims that Christians are responsible for this. Even though the attacker himself had nothing to do with Christianity, they have decided that the Christian right wing, because of what they claim is anti-LGBT, which I've done videos about these anti-LGBT bills that actually aren't. Because of that, they have created this incredible negative atmosphere, and so they are to blame. Christians are to blame for this horrible atrocity. I most recently have had a conversation that I'm still digesting with someone that I used to consider a very good friend, where they claimed that Christians are responsible for the worst atrocities the world has ever seen, which is a false statement. It is targeted hate directed at a group of individuals, which is always wrong. So we have people claiming that Christians are to blame for this. We have people claiming that guns are to blame for this, because this always happens whenever there's any sort of shooting. We talk about gun control and we talk about things. Right now, I've seen a lot of people claiming that we need to ban the AR-15. For those of you that don't know, AR-15 is a weapon that, depending on which version of the words assault rifle you use, because there's actually no legal definition for what is an assault weapon. Um, so depending on which version of the definition that you use is an assault weapon. It's a semi-automatic long barrel rifle that is legal as long as it's in the semi-automatic form. The military version of it is the M4, the M16, which is a standard issue weapon for Marines. The military in general, Army uses it. It's a very reliable firearm, and so that's why they all use it. The AR-15 is a civilian model. So a lot of people are going on tirades about how we need to ban assault weapons, despite the fact that assault weapon doesn't actually have a definition, and everything from, again, depending on which definition you use, everything from a handgun with a magazine all the way to fully automatic submachine guns qualifies under the blanket term of assault weapon. So claiming that we should ban all assault weapons actually doesn't really solve anything, because at that point we're basically deciding we need to ban all guns, which is not a way to fix this, and it never has been. The other thing that a lot of people and a lot of news sources are ignoring, again, I think it's called the ATF, or something similar to that. Again, my brain is bonkers right now. Specifically stated he had an AR-15 style weapon, not an AR-15, which is a very important distinction, especially when you're dealing with police or government entities, things like that, because they're always very, very specific in what they say. That could mean that it's one of the many variants of it. It could just mean that he had a long-barreled semi-automatic weapon, and banning the AR-15 would literally do absolutely nothing, because it wasn't what he used. Again, I don't know. All I know is that I keep seeing official words saying it was an AR-15 type weapon or style weapon, and everyone else claiming that it was an AR-15, which is bad yellow journalism. It's specifically meant to scapegoat. We have the New York Daily News has decided that it's the National Rifle Association's fault for this tragedy, that they're lobbying for lower gun restrictions and things like that is the reason that this happened. All of these viewpoints are false. 100% of them are false. It wasn't the NRA's fault. It wasn't it wasn't Congress's fault. It wasn't the Christians' fault. It wasn't Islam's fault. It wasn't actually even ISIS's fault that this happened. It was this one gunman's fault. That's it. No one else is to blame for this but him. And we need to stop scapegoating. We need to stop picking random groups of people who we can say, you have to pay for the crimes of this person that had nothing to do with you. This is how horrible things happen, is you pick a random group of people, blame them for all the troubles in the world, and then exterminate them. That's how the Nazi racial cleansing started. Was somebody got up and said, you know who's at fault for all this horrible shit? You know who's at fault for the worst atrocities in human history? The Jews. They control all the money. They control all these other things. They're horrible. They're disgusting. You can't trust them. All they want to do is help themselves at the expense of everybody else in the world. You know what? We don't need them. Let's get rid of them. And it starts out very innocuously. It starts out by going, we don't need them. Let's just kick them out. And then it turns to, we don't need them, but we don't want to force them on anyone else. So let's just put them in a safe place where they can't hurt anybody. And then it turns to, there's too many of them. We don't have enough space. We got to do something about them. These guys are the scum of the earth. Let's just get rid of them. Super, super easy. Just get rid of them. We don't have to deal with them anymore. And the world will be a better place. This is how these things happen. Is you start by targeting some group, deciding that they're a horrible, evil, disgusting thing, blaming them for things they have no control over, and then it slowly builds. And it needs to stop. What happened in Orlando was horrible, was a tragedy. And yes, we need to come up with a way that we can help prevent things like this happening in the future. Police reports have said this was an incredibly well thought out and planned attack. This particular individual had firearms training and was very well versed in what he was doing. Someone like that won't be stopped by a ban on weapons, won't be stopped by lobbyist groups being taken out of power and getting their ability to lobby taken away. A person like that is not going to be stopped by destroying the religion that he claimed allegiance to when he did this horrible thing. He's not going to be stopped by destroying a religion he didn't claim allegiance to when he committed this act. He made the decision to do something horrible. He put a lot of time and effort into doing it, and then he did it. The problem of gun violence in the US is not something that you can fix with a law or a ban. You can't fix it by taking guns away from people. You can't fix it by giving guns to people. You can't fix it by destroying the NRA. You can't fix it by giving the NRA more power. You can't fix it by getting rid of all the Muslims in the country, or the Christians, or the Jews, or the Jesuits, or any other group in the world. This is an incredibly complex, multifaceted issue that the only way we are ever going to solve it is by looking at it, finding out what the actual causes are, and coming up with a very complex and comprehensive solution. That's how it's going to get fixed. It's not going to get fixed by banning AR-15s. Another act of terrorism, 3 years ago, the Boston City bombing, that was done with household supplies. The Oklahoma City bombing, which was horrendous, was done with fertilizer. Okay, folks, guns are not necessary to kill people. And the argument is always, well, it makes it a lot easier. Yeah. Okay, yeah, you're 100% right. It is much easier to kill somebody with a gun than it is to kill them with a knife or a sword. But guess what, folks? Killing someone with a knife is not hard. Just because guns are easier does not mean that it's not easy to kill people in general. We are insanely fragile people. Our bodies are incredibly fragile. They're unbelievably complex. There are hundreds of thousands of individual systems and things in our body that if they don't work the exact way they're supposed to, we're done. So we need to stop this. We need to stop looking for someone to blame. We need to stop trying to find someone that we can make pay for this. The person that is responsible for this is dead. And I know that upsets a lot of people because they've got it in their head that he deserves to be punished, to feel all of the pain that he inflicted not only on these people, but on the rest of the country and the world combined. That's not justice, that is vengeance. And we don't need vengeance right now. Vengeance never leads to anything but more vengeance. So, to recap, this wasn't the Christians' fault. This wasn't the NRA's fault. This wasn't Congress's fault. This wasn't Islam's fault. This wasn't because of mental illness, which is another thing that's been running rampant. This wasn't because this wasn't the this wasn't the LGBT community's fault. This wasn't anybody's fault but the person that did this. And whatever justification he used doesn't matter. He made a choice. He made a choice a while ago that he was going to do this. And no amount of scapegoating, blame throwing, anything like that is going to change the fact that this one person did something horrendous and is dead. So stop scapegoating. Stop getting into arguments over who deserves to be punished for this. Stop trying to enact your own form of vengeance because you're scared or you're hurt. We are all hurt. We are all terrified that this happened on American soil, that nobody knew it was coming, that it was completely out of the blue. All of us are. It doesn't mean we have to enact vengeance against whatever group we can to make ourselves feel better. Because here's the real kicker. Vengeance doesn't make you feel better. Never has. Makes you feel even worse. It becomes a cancer. It grows inside of you. It turns you into something you never thought you would become. So stop it. Right now. You want to do something productive? You want to get some sort of good out of this? Go to your local blood bank. Donate blood. Doesn't matter that the place that they need it right now is Orlando, and they have people lining up down the street to donate blood and help with this. Donating blood is something that always helps. They always need blood everywhere in the world. You want to get something done about this? Donate to charities that help out during disaster. You know, there are people down there that, even though they're now having to bury a member of their family, which could have been the breadwinner for their home, they still have to continue living. They still have to make dinner every night. They still have to go to their job and things like that, and that is unbelievably difficult. And there are charities out there that will help people through that. A lot of them run by churches. I know, horrible, the Christians, the disgusting, deplorable, horrendous Christians. Yeah, they help a lot of people. And we never hear about that because the rhetoric right now is that Christians are the enemy. You want to make a difference? Tweet or email or write your representatives, your senators. Don't ask them to ban guns. Don't ask them to destroy the NRA. Tell them you want the CDC to do a complete comprehensive study of gun violence. And that is something that the NRA has lobbied against. So in that particular instance, yes, you can fight against them for that. That does not mean the NRA is the enemy. It means that they have decided that their particular views on this coincide with not studying gun violence, specifically because there are far too many studies out there right now that are being twisted and contorted simply to get a political agenda across. And this happens in every single scientific field in history. Someone will find a way to abuse it. And so they made the decision that the best way to deal with this, because of the anti-gun sentiment that is already rampant in this country, was to prevent that. Is it the wrong decision? 100% yes. But I can understand the thought process behind it. So you want this fixed, we need to study it. We need to figure out what the root cause of it and then treat the cause. Banning guns to prevent gun violence is like taking Tylenol to cure cancer. Yeah, it'll deal with the pain for a little bit, but you're still dying. All right? Anyway, that's all for me today. I'll see you guys later in the week. Bye.